The next thing I would tell you, I think, and this is a very important lesson in Silicon Valley, and as I talk a little bit about Sacramento and the state government, I think this is an important thing, which is innovation is the lifeblood. Constantly reinventing yourself is the lifeblood. And that the price of inaction is far greater than the cost of making a mistake. That if you live in fear of making a mistake, you actually won't achieve your full potential. Your company won't try things that could end up being the used car business. And there were lots of people who told Pierre in the early days, this business will never work. Let me make sure I understand this. You're going to send money to someone you've never met, and you're going to assume you get the product. Well, $8 billion later, $60 billion in merchandise traded on the site. If Pierre hadn't been willing to take that risk, there wouldn't be an eBay today. So I think in almost any business and in almost any position that you're in, this notion of being willing to make a mistake, the corollary to that is if you make a mistake, you better fix it really fast. And you can't stand on ceremony and pretend that there's a mistake was not made. You have to actually fix the mistake really, really fast. I would say two other lessons, and then we'll call Pat up in a minute, is be yourself. I remember as a young woman in business, and this is a true story, I graduated from Harvard Business School and I'd always gone by the name Meg. My mother had called me Meg, my father had called me Meg, except for when he was mad, and then he did call me Margaret. And I thought, I graduated from Harvard Business School and I showed up at P&G and I said, you know what, I think I should really go by Margaret. It sounds so much more serious and people will take me more seriously. And so for about 2 weeks at Procter & Gamble, I was Margaret. And I was like, oh God, I can't keep up the charade. I just have to be Meg. And I would just encourage you, be who you are. Let your personality shine through. Be your authentic self, because you will be happier and you won't be constantly trying to remember how you're supposed to act. And I think being women in business, we just have to be who we are. We have to take our strengths and weaknesses and do the very best job we can. And in the end, it's all about delivering the results, isn't it? If you deliver the results, if you are in the neighborhood of good things happening all the time, you will in fact get those rewards and you will be promoted and you will have all kinds of opportunities. And then last, and it's so obvious, but sometimes in today's world you forget a little bit about it, which is never, ever, ever compromise your integrity. Because that's all at the end of the day that you really have. And we used to have this discussion at eBay all the time about what was the right thing to do, what was the high integrity thing to do. And it's very complicated when you run a global company, because sometimes in different countries the ethics are a little different, aren't they? What is acceptable in South Korea isn't actually necessarily acceptable in America. And so people would say, well, how do I know? I'm a marketing manager in Spain. How do I know what to do? And I had a very simple rule for people. I said, pretend you are in that meeting and someone you care about deeply, your mother, your child, your husband, your wife, your sister, someone who you respect and love is sitting up in the corner of that conference room watching your decision making. And would you be proud to have them watch? And then the second thing, a more practical approach even, is would you be happy to have this whole thing laid out on the cover of the New York Times? And if the answer to that is no, actually you probably shouldn't be doing it. So let me shift gears for a moment and then we'll call Pat up for a fun question and answer. So why in the world am I actually running for governor? And there's two reasons. One is I saw every day at eBay how government could help or hurt small business grow and thrive. And as you all know, 72% of all jobs created in California are actually small business jobs, the kind of sellers that eBay sellers were. And there's ways to create conditions for job growth, and there's ways to stop job growth. And I was inspired by that, and I really saw the power of that. And then frankly, I was inspired by Mitt Romney and John McCain, who later on, when Mitt stepped down, John McCain actually asked me to be one of his national co-chairs. And no matter what you think about their politics, they are great Americans. They're great patriots. They love this country, and they were running for president for the right reason. And they inspired me to think beyond my career in business to a career in public service. So the reason that I have decided to run for governor of California is the following. I refuse to let California fail. And do not be confused, California is failing. So let me sum it up for you. We have the third highest unemployment rate in the country, only behind Michigan and West Virginia. Our state is effectively bankrupt. We are bleeding jobs, not so much to India and China, but to Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, and Texas. And that's because it's a way easier place to do business. And so we are bleeding jobs. We have a high unemployment rate. K through 12 public education is failing our students in a way that we should be embarrassed about. The infrastructure of the state really hasn't been upgraded since Governor Pat Brown was governor in the 50s and 60s. Much of our infrastructure was built for a state with half the population. And then, by the way, the state is effectively bankrupt. In the language of business, which this audience would understand, the business model of California is actually broken. And by the way, there is gridlock in Sacramento where nothing seems to get done, and the real root of the problems never seem to get addressed. So I've decided to take this on, and I will tell you this is not for the faint of heart. On a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is really hard, being governor of California is a 12. Yet, I think there's a way forward here. I have had the privilege of traveling all over the state, from Yuba City, which is about an hour and a half north of Sacramento, to San Diego, from Fresno to Silicon Valley, from Marin to San Luis Obispo, from Bakersfield to Stockton to Los Angeles. And this is a great state we live in. The people are exciting and energetic, and innovation is happening everywhere. It's not just happening in Silicon Valley, it's happening everywhere. And you know what? Barbara Grimm, who runs Grimway Farms, which is now the largest carrot producer in the country. We like to say we disrupted commerce and we disrupted payments. She disrupted carrots. Because prior to Barbara Grimm, carrots were sold in the supermarket. You know, the carrots with the skin on them and the long grassy tops? Well, the last time you bought a carrot like that was probably 10 years ago. You buy them now in the plastic pouches. They're bite-sized and rounded. Barbara Grimm and her husband invented a machine that did that and increased carrot consumption in California by 10 times. She disrupted carrots. So it's a great state, and Californians want California to be great again. So I have just a three-part agenda. It's very simple. We need to make sure that we create more jobs in California and we retain jobs in California. Because if we don't fix the economic engine that is California, it doesn't really matter what else we do. So the number one lens through which we have to view everything is, does the policy create jobs and does it retain jobs? And if it doesn't do one of those two things, then I think it needs to go down on the priority list of things we tackle. Number two is state spending. I have been deep into the California budget, all $150 billion of the state budget. And trust me when I tell you, we do not have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem of epic proportions. The state government is not run efficiently or energetically, and we have once and for all to fix that because we are spending other people's money, what I like to call OPM. And we have got to run this state efficiently and effectively so that we can make investments in lower tax rates or education or health care or the environment. And then the third priority is education. You probably know we've been rated 47th out of 50 states in math and 48th out of 50 states in reading. Thank goodness for West Virginia and Mississippi. And in 1956, we had the #1 education system in the country. And over the last 50 years, the system has declined almost 1 rating point every single year. And people will tell you that it's because we have such a diverse state, that 52% of our kindergartners are Hispanic, and that creates a problem. It didn't sound right to me. So I started looking around, and all roads in public education actually lead to Florida. 11 years ago, Jeb Bush started an education reform movement in Florida, which had 3 major components to it. He graded every single school A through F, and he told the parents. And he said you'd never seen moms and dads so riled up when they found their 3rd grader in an F school. He then increased the number of charter schools dramatically so that parents had a choice about where to send their children. He then paid for performance. He paid the best teachers more, and he paid more for science and math teachers. And the results have been phenomenal. The bottom 20% of low-income Hispanic students in Florida outperform the California average.